Kafka Hibino is the main character of Kaiju No. 8, and the first humanoid monster in the series. He has always dreamed of joining the defense force because of something that had happened in his past. Now that he's finally a major part of this military group, he's about to meet some of the strongest and most important fighters in the force, including his childhood friend, Mina Ashiro, the person he shares a promise with. So hold on tight, because starting with Kafka Hibino, aka Kaiju No. 8, we're introducing every major and strongest member of Japan's anti-kaiju defense force, all in just a few minutes. Kafka didn't start out as a natural talent for the defense force. He failed the entrance exams over and over, and with age catching up with him, he eventually gave up on his dream. Instead, he spent years working as a cleaner for a kaiju disposal company. That all changed when a strange parasite kaiju entered his mouth and turned Kafka into the very thing he hated most, a kaiju. What makes his transformation different is that he can switch between human form and kaiju form whenever he wants, or even partially transform specific parts of his body. He's later classified as Kaiju No. 8, with a fortitude of 9.8, making him one of the most powerful Daikaiju to ever exist. Although Kafka is pretty weak in a kaiju fight when he's in human form and can only release 1% of his combat suit's power, Kafka still has some of the strongest abilities in the series. He was seen gigantifying himself, firing off electricity-like energy attacks, and he could regenerate himself or even disrupt other kaiju's regeneration. He can even detect the location of other kaiju. Later on in the series, he's also shown to have a force shield that looks similar to the one Kaiju No. 9 has through Kaiju No. 2's powers. Kafka has insane physical strength, durability, and firepower, allowing him to survive attacks from Defense Force members and other kaiju. He even went berserk and nearly destroyed Shinomiya Isao. With Hoshina, Kafka also trained in the troop-style hand-to-hand combat that Isao mastered, and combined it with Hoshina-style hand-to-hand to land an unexpected attack on Kaiju No. 9. Even Kaiju No. 9 knows that Kafka is the strongest being after him. He's sure that Kafka could easily wipe out other kaiju, so instead of fighting him head-on, he needs a different approach. His solution is to take advantage of Kafka's weakness. Kafka is so kind that he refuses to abandon people. He won't stop trying to save them, even if it means that Mina Ashiro, possibly the person he loves the most, is in grave danger. Luckily, Reno Ichikawa arrived just in time to help Kafka, but there's something else Kafka struggles with. He tends to take on too much responsibility by himself and doesn't rely on his allies enough. This comes from him being a bit of a worrywart and feels like he has to handle everything alone. Fortunately, thanks to Ichikawa and Kikoru, he started to improve on this. But that doesn't mean he isn't afraid of his own powers. Deep down, Kafka fears that if he goes berserk again, he might hurt the people he cares about. At one point, he failed so many times that he couldn't even transform. It wasn't until Kikoru Shinomiya reminded him not to underestimate them that he finally managed to change again. Still, there's one harsh truth. If he stays in his kaiju form for too long, he won't be able to turn back into a human. Well, now, that doesn't even matter anymore. Kafka can no longer be human. He made a deal with the larva kaiju who gave him his powers so he could return to battle. Turns out, that larva wasn't just any creature. It was formed from the regret and hatred of warriors who died fighting the great kaiju during the Meiriki era. It was described as the fruit of their grudge. Now, if Kafka wants to defeat Kaiju No. 9, he has to form a deeper bond with the larva and fully merge with it. He has two choices: regain his human heart and become fully human again, losing his kaiju powers, or create a new core, a monster core, and live as a kaiju forever. And what did Kafka choose? Kafka returned to the battlefield, starting his rematch with No. 9, and transformed into a completely new form with boosted strength and stronger powers. At this point, he's neither human nor kaiju. He's something completely unknown. He carries with him a never-ending storm of resentment, regret, and anger, the very source of Kaiju No. 8's power. The battle is still ongoing, but so far, Kafka is completely dominating Kaiju No. 9. Mina Ashiro is the captain of the Defense Force's 3rd Division and holds the title of the strongest supergiant class kaiju killer. She's so powerful that she can release 96% of her combat suit's release force and take down giant kaiju with ease, even without a numbers weapon. Mina is specifically skilled at using long-range weapons like firearms to obliterate every giant kaiju in existence. In fact, Keiji Itami goes as far as to claim that if they had Mina during the No. 6 Cataclysm, they might have prevented a lot of casualties, possibly even the death of Shinomiya Hikari. Even in her early days with the Defense Force, Mina was already an incredible artillery specialist. While her other stats range from average to below average, her firepower is on a completely different level. Even Isao saw her as the missing link the Defense Force needed. With Mina as a combatant, kaiju extermination has never been the same. Of course, she didn't have it easy. At first, she struggled and wished Kafka could stand beside her. For a long time, he couldn't catch up, and at one point, she even saw him as a liar for never fulfilling his promise. But Mina never gave up. She kept pushing forward and is now one of the strongest, if not the strongest member of the Defense Force. Even without a numbers weapon, she carries insanely powerful firearms, including a cannon that can blast a massive hole through a giant kaiju. She even has a custom-built anti-giant class kaiju railgun called Coronas. which can fire from 20 kilometers away and take out multiple kaiju at once. This actually makes Mina stronger than Jin Narumi, at least when it comes to fighting giant kaiju. But in close combat, she's not as powerful as some of the other elite defense force members. Even Kaiju number 9 knows this, which is why he created a kaiju specifically to counter Mina. Though she managed to defeat it, number 9 had a backup plan. Using Kaiju number 14's teleportation ability, he appeared right in front of Mina. She was the key to his master plan. If he could steal her power, he'd become even stronger, and at that point, Tokyo would be doomed. When Mina was absorbed by number 9, she was terrified and nearly fell for his deception. But thanks to Bako, she snapped back to reality and saw through number 9's tricks. What's crazy is that while no one, not even Isao, had ever escaped from number 9 before, Mina actually managed to break free and return to the fight. This time, she and Kafka finally fight side by side. Soshiro Hoshina is the 3rd Division's vice captain. Remember how Mina struggles with close quarters combat? Well, the reason her division still dominates is because of this guy. Hoshina is the best swordsman in Kaiju number 8, and the one who came closest to imitating Zoro's 3-sword style. He also broke the subjugation exercise record for small kaiju, a title that Jin Narumi once held. Unlike Mina, Hoshina's firearm combat power is low, so fighting giant kaiju isn't his specialty. But when it comes to miniature and mid-sized kaiju, he's the ultimate counter. His sword skills are at the next level, and it's no surprise since he comes from a long line of kaiju slayers dating back to the Muromachi period, around the 14th to 16th century. Hoshina's sword techniques are seriously impressive. He's got moves like the 8-fold slasher, which he used against Kaiju number 10, and the cross strike, which took down a kaiju at Shofu Airport. He can even switch to a single blade style, though he's not a fan of using it since that's his brother's specialty. His family's cutting techniques have countless forms and strikes, and he has mastered them all. What's wild is that Hoshina was never the standout in his clan. His brother was always seen as the true prodigy. Hoshina was even considered a reject, but not because he lacked talent. His father admitted that he was a prodigy, but only if they were still in the Edo period. In the past, swords were essential for kaiju fights, but with more massive kaiju appearing, blades lost their place. People constantly told him to give up on joining the defense force, and he got sick of hearing it. When Mina called him to her office, he thought she'd say the same thing. Instead, she offered him a spot in her division. Mina knew she wasn't great with blades, and she wanted someone who could handle smaller kaiju. Hoshina's job was simple. When she needed to shoot, he had to clear a path. Later, Hoshina got his hands on a unique weapon, the numbers weapon from Kaiju number 10. This thing was different from anything before because it had a will of its own. Controlling it was a struggle, and syncing with it was even harder. But then, Hoshina had a realization. He didn't keep fighting to beat his brother, or just because it was his duty. He fought because he loved wielding a sword. The moment he accepted that, he and Kaiju number 10 finally clicked. He unleashed a full 100% release and took down Kaiju number 12. Real quick, before we break down the Shinomiya family and the top defense force members, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Stay tuned because at the end of the video, we'll also reveal the combatant with the highest potential to be the strongest of them all. No time to waste, let's lock on to our next target. Kikoru Shinomiya is hands down one of the greatest talents the defense force has ever seen. She's not just riding on her family name. Sure, she's the daughter of Hikari Shinomiya, the strongest of her time, and Isao, the Director General of the Defense Force, but her skills speak for themselves. Right from the entrance exams, she showed how crazy strong she was by instantly pulling out 46% of her combat suit's power. And that was just the beginning. Later on, she cranked it up to 94% and took down Kaiju number 15. That's an insane power boost. One of the most interesting things about Kikoru is that she can actually see her mother's ghost. And apparently, this isn't even weird. Since she was a kid, Kikoru dreamed of joining the defense force to help her mom one day. But when Hikari was killed by Kaiju number 6, everything changed. Kikoru was forced to get stronger, and her goals shifted. Since she couldn't save her mother, she made a promise to save others instead, especially now that she has the power to do it. Kikoru wields a custom-made battle axe. Normally, custom weapons are reserved for captains, but Kikoru was an exception. She was just too strong to be held back. Plus, with the kaiju getting stronger, the defense force needed every advantage it could get. Her axe comes with some devastating moves. Falling Thunder is a massive overhead slash that sends out shockwaves. Water Skimmer delivers a precise, clean cut on impact. And then there's Daruma Dropper, where she lands multiple brutal slashes from head to toe. If that's not enough, she can even do a 10-hit version of it. But that's not all. Later, Kikoru got her hands on Numbers Weapon 4, the same weapon her mother used when she was alive. This isn't just any numbers weapon. It's the fastest in Defense Force history, and the only one that lets its user fly. Kikoru mastered it so well that even Keiji Itami, who once said she fought like her mother, now sees her as the perfect mix of both Hikari and Isao. As for why she sees her mother's ghost when using Numbers Weapon 4, that's still a mystery. One theory is that it's connected to the memories of the kaiju used in the weapon's core. But for Kikoru, that ghost is more than just a memory. It's her guide, and when she finally matches its movements perfectly, that'll be the moment she surpasses her mother. Kikoru Shinomiya was Kikoru's mother and the former captain of the Defense Force's 2nd Division. She was easily one of the strongest fighters in history and held the record of the highest kaiju kill count, far surpassing any captain before her. She even managed to unleash 93% of her combat suit's power. But even with all that strength, she still lost her life in the battle against Kaiju No. 6. When Kikoru told her she wanted to join the Defense Force, Hikari was happy but also had mixed feelings. She knew better than anyone how dangerous this job was, so of course she worried as a parent. But if Kikoru was going to walk that path, which she did, Hikari was determined to make sure she had the strength to survive. She's willing to take on the role of the strict parent, trusting Isao to be the one who gives Kikoru love and attention. If you've seen the series though, you already know Isao did not live up to that expectation. Isao Shinomiya is the Director General of the Defense Force and is known as the strongest soldier the Defense Force has ever seen. He stood side by side with Hikari in their glory days and was the only one capable of wielding the numbers weapon crafted from Kaiju No. 2. Isao even fused his mastery of the squadron-style combat technique with the numbers weapon to unleash force energy blasts. His aura alone was that of a Dai Kaiju, and his battle against the Berserk Kafka was described as the clash of two identified Kaijus. It was the same story when he took on Kaiju No. 9. Isao pushed his numbers weapon to full release, trading his own lifespan for an insane level of power that made him look like a Dai Kaiju in human form. But even that wasn't enough to stop Kaiju No. 9's overwhelming strength. More than that, Isao wasn't just fighting Kafka to take him down. He was pushing him to his absolute limit, testing him, and actually giving him a chance to survive. After seeing Kafka's potential, Isao made his decision. Instead of turning him into a weapon, he wanted to use his power as it was. Even when other officials refused to take the risk, Isao bet on the chance that Kafka could stay human and fight as their ally. But he made one thing clear: if Kafka wanted to live, he had to prove he was worth it. Isao always believed in the future generation. Just like Hikari, he put his life on the line to wipe out threats so they wouldn't have to. But his body couldn't handle the power he unleashed against Kaiju No. 9. The enemy stole his memories, his techniques, and the power of Kaiju No. 2. Isao fought with everything he had, trying to resist from the inside, but in the end, he failed to escape and lost consciousness. Now, all he can do is entrust everything to Kafka and the others. Jin Narumi is one of the people Isao trusts most. In fact, when Isao retired from the battlefield, he left Narumi in charge of the country and the Defense Force. Narumi is the captain of the 1st Division, and he's so strong he earned the title of Japan's strongest anti-kaiju combatant. But here's the thing, Narumi is also a hardcore gamer. He's got his priorities straight between his job, gaming, and ego surfing. When the emergency bell rings though, Narumi switches gears and gets ready to fight kaijus. Narumi uses the oldest numbers weapon in Japan, which was made from the retina of Kaiju No. 1. This weapon gives him the ability to see the future. He can use it to locate Kaiju's core and unleash attacks that are impossible to dodge. When Kaiju No. 11 countered his abilities, Narumi came up with an upgrade himself. Instead of just reading electron signals, he learned to see the movements of electrons, temperature fluctuations, and more, which made his weapon's foresight ability way stronger. Besides that, Narumi also has a custom-made weapon, a big rifle with blades attached at the end. This lets him slash and shoot in waves, handling both short and long-range targets. And his combat power is an insane 98%. However, he does have some weaknesses. His abilities are only powerful if there are a few enemies, and if their defense is too strong, he might not be able to defeat them. There are also some interesting details about Narumi outside of his gaming skills, and the fact that he reached platinum rank in one of his games. For example, he's always had a bit of a rivalry with Hoshina, even though he once invited him to his division. Narumi's also been trying to impress Isao for a long time, helping to bring him to tears. But what Narumi didn't realize is that Isao was actually working hard to stay as a wall for Narumi to improve. As a captain, Narumi doesn't care much for pleasantries. If you're part of his division, you've got one job: show him your overwhelming skills and results. Eiji Hasegawa is the vice captain of the 1st Division, and you won't believe how much of a headache he gets when dealing with Narumi. He's one of the reasons the 1st Division remains well known, even in countries as far away from Japan as America. As vice captain of a division that focuses on strength and overwhelming skills, Eiji is a solid fighter. While he might not be as famous as Narumi or Mina, he's still been in plenty of kaiju battles. He wears a respirator mask as part of his battle suit, plus battle armor that carries 2 huge firearms that he can fire non-stop. However, Eiji often seems more like the leader of the 1st Division than Narumi does. He takes on nearly all the captain's duties in Narumi's place, which is actually more important than it sounds. This role lets Narumi fight freely while Eiji handles the leadership side of things. And of course, Eiji is also the one who patiently reminds Narumi about his job and even his cleaning duties. Jugo Ogata is the captain of the 4th Division, the division where Ichikawa and Iharu were later transferred. Jugo was the type of laid-back guy who wouldn't hesitate to drink on duty. However, back in the day, he was actually Hikari's rival. Jugo, however, carries a heavy burden. He blames himself for Hikari's fall on the battlefield. He can't shake the thought that maybe, if he had known what would happen, or if he had told her that she wasn't compatible with the Kaiju No. 4 weapon, or just stayed by her side that day, maybe she'd still be alive. This regret has haunted him for years. Because of this, Jugo became an expert in using numbers weapons. When he finds out that Ichikawa has a chance to take the compatibility test for weapon number 6, the most powerful and dangerous kaiju weapon, Jugo urges him to turn it down. He knew that half of the people who had tried to use it had lost their lives. In the end, Jugo gave Ichikawa a 1-month evaluation period and determined that he was fit to wield the weapon. He then became not just Ichikawa's but also Iharu's mentor, vowing to teach them everything he knew. This becomes important later on because Jugo's fighting style has a lot in common with the next character on the list. Iharu Furuhashi is another member of the defense force with a rare power that's very similar to Jugo's. What's interesting is that his fighting style helped Iharu go from using 24% of his combat suit to reaching 88%, at least for a short while. Jugo first noticed Iharu's potential during Ichikawa's test. When Ichikawa was about to fail because he couldn't control the weapon, Iharu rushed in to save him, asking Jugo for more time. But what was strange was how Iharu's movements and firepower didn't match the power level of a 24% suit. Iharu's power fluctuated from 24 to 41 to 22 and back to 42. It was unstable. Jugo later figured out that Iharu is what they call a flash adapter. This is a rare condition where someone can't maintain full power for long but instead fights with rapid and explosive bursts. So far, only 3 people have been recorded as flash adapters, including Jugo. With Jugo's training, Iharu actually has the potential to surpass even Ichikawa. When Iharu gets into the zone, his combat abilities soar. Later, he even got a custom-made shotgun with electrified cells that can explode and shock kaiju from the inside. Interestingly, when he saw that Ichikawa failed his compatibility test, Iharu felt a bit relieved. He had always been at the top of the ranks since high school and thought he'd easily catch up to the likes of Mina, Narumi, and even Isao someday. But the reality was harsh. Iharu eventually stopped improving and hated the idea of falling behind them. He even felt jealous of Ichikawa's progress. In the end though, he let go of his jealousy and helped Ichikawa pass the final test. Keiji Itami was the deputy director of the defense force, and after Isao's death, he became the new leader of the organization. Even though he didn't want more power or to be in charge, Itami took the role and accepted the responsibility of managing the defense force. Itami was an old friend of Isao's, and it's hinted throughout the series that he had a deep connection with Isao and his family. We didn't see much of Itami's fighting or his fighting style, but during Kafka and Isao's fight, Itami was there breaking everything down in detail. This shows that he has the experience and fighting sense to understand what's going on, but he's past his prime. Unlike Isao, Itami didn't stay as strong in battle as he aged. Haruichi Izumo started in the 3rd Division alongside Ichikawa and the others, but he was later transferred to the 2nd Division, and at some point, he was assigned back to the 3rd Division. Izumo originally could only release 18% of his combat suit's power, but over time, he managed to level it up to 36%. That's actually higher than Iharu's power when he's not in his zone. Like most Defense Force members, Izumo began with a regular rifle, but later, he switched to a custom bow with poison-tipped arrows made by Izumo Tech. And for those who don't know, Izumo Tech is Japan's biggest anti-kaiju weapon manufacturer, and Izumo is the heir to the family that owns it. During his time in the 2nd Division, Izumo was trained by Jura Igarashi, which made him much stronger. He may not be as flashy as other combatants, and his arrows don't have huge firepower, but Izumo has a cunning fighting style he made for himself. When the arrows hit, the kaiju get poisoned and stop moving, and that's when the next character steps in. Aoi Kaguragi is another major member of the Defense Force, and he was transferred to the same divisions as Izumo. In fact, their partnership is so well matched that Izumo's new fighting style with his poisoned arrows makes it much easier for Kaguragi to follow up. Kaguragi was able to unleash 15% of his combat suit's power from the start, and he eventually leveled it up to 25%. He transferred between divisions with Izumo, and they're both promising talents who were trained by Jura Igarashi before what could be the final battle against Kaiju No. 9. During this time, Kaguragi also has his own custom weapon. He wields a huge pile driver almost as big as he is. When the kaiju can't move thanks to Izumo's arrows, Kaguragi follows up by landing on top of them and delivering a finishing blow. In fact, this weapon has enough firepower to blow them up completely. Watching Kaguragi and Izumo in action, even Eiji thinks their strengths are impressive. Rin Shinonome is a platoon leader in the 1st Division, and she has deep feelings for her captain, Narumi. The whole reason she wants to get stronger was so Narumi would notice her. So when Narumi appointed her as a platoon leader, Rin was beyond happy. It wasn't just because she got promoted, or that her skills were recognized, but also because Narumi called her by her first name. She was over the moon about that. Rin's dedication to helping Narumi is off the charts. Even if it meant risking her life, she didn't hesitate to fight Kaiju No. 13, hoping to at least gather intel for Narumi to take it down later. This kaiju was so powerful that it destroyed Tachibana, her fellow platoon leader. It's important to note that Rin and Tachibana aren't weaklings. Narumi even said that all platoon leaders in his division could be commanders one day. This is especially true for Rin, who can unleash up to 73% of her combat suit's power and has the strength to wield a massive machine gun to take down kaiju. Rin is also skilled at keeping her distance from opponents, as Kikoru pointed out during their training. Luckily, Rin was saved just in time by Kafka before Kaiju No. 13 could crush her. Soichiro Hoshina is the captain of the 6th Division and the older brother of Soshiro Hoshina. He was in charge of Himeji City when Kaiju No. 9 spread high-level kaijus across Japan. Soichiro is a master of both swords and firearms, and it's hinted that he uses both in battle. His father even once mentioned that Soichiro's skills in swordsmanship, small arms, and overall combat earned him the title of the Hoshina family's ultimate incarnation. Vice Captain Hoshina also views him as perfect, especially since he's seen as the family's reject. What's more, it is also Soichiro who has mastered the single blade form of the Hoshina-style sword technique, which is why Vice Captain Hoshina isn't too eager to use it. However, Soichiro actually sees his younger brother as a prodigy, someone unbeatable in close combat. He once said that he stands above everyone else in the Hoshina family, past and present, and he's genuinely proud of his brother. He even cried when he remembered that his brother hated his guts and cut ties with him in the past because of all the taunting he did when they were kids. In reality, that was Soichiro's way to demotivate him. He was terrified of Hoshina, a sibling 5 years younger than him, who was rapidly closing the gap in their strength and techniques the more they sparred. It had the opposite effect though, because Hoshina just got more motivated. Soichiro also looks like he hasn't fully abandoned the sword either and can still eliminate kaijus with his blade. Jura Igarashi is the captain of the 2nd Division in the Defense Force, and she's the one who trained Izumo and Kugaragi when they were transferred to her division. We didn't get to see much of Jura's fighting skills, but we do know that she takes her job very seriously. She gets upset when others aren't as focused as she is. For example, she once scolded Narumi for yawning during a meeting, and even got angry at Jugo for bringing a bottle of sake with him. Another interesting detail about Jura is that she's the older sister of Hakuya Igarashi, who was in the 3rd Division with Kikoru and the others. Even though we haven't seen her fight much, considering that she trained Izumo and Kagaragi to become stronger combatants, it's easy to assume that Jura is pretty powerful herself. Reno Ichikawa is one of the young talents of the Defense Force, and he currently wields the No. 6 weapon, which is the strongest of all the Numbers weapons. This weapon allows Ichikawa to easily take down giant kaiju and prove to Kafka that he's a partner he can trust. Ichikawa started his dream to join the Defense Force by being a part-timer at Monster Sweeper Inc., where Kafka once worked. The reason he joined was because he had intel that the exams were about dismantling kaijus. Needless to say, he was really wrong when they found out that the task was to neutralize them instead. At first, Ichikawa was able to unleash 8% of the suit's power, which pales in comparison to Kikoru, who was able to unleash 46% from the get-go. But considering a trained general can only release about 20% on average, it's still pretty impressive. Later, Ichikawa would unleash 51% of the combat suit's power, so he ended up pretty good. It wasn't until the Defense Force's preparations for Kaiju No. 9's plans that Ichikawa saw great potential in becoming the first person to be compatible with weapon No. 6. This weapon had been stored away for a long time due to how dangerous it was, but with Ichikawa's cells showing signs of synchronization, the compatibility test started. Shockingly, Ichikawa failed. However, Ichikawa wasn't that unlucky. According to Jugo, the weapon had led half of its users to their deaths before they were even discharged, but Ichikawa was lucky enough to be spared. Even though he failed, Ichikawa later got a 1-month evaluation period, and with Iharu's help, he finally got approval from Jugo. The process wasn't easy though. Ichikawa got hurt, lost himself in the process, and felt immense pressure, knowing that failing meant he couldn't save Kafka or anyone else. Once he got the weapon, Ichikawa became way stronger. The suit boosts his overall abilities and gives him cryokinesis, which lets him freeze anything around him. Even when he wasn't fully in control, just being near the suit could make people like Iharu feel like they were freezing. Through training, Ichikawa learned to create force fields, shoot powerful freezing blasts, and freeze huge kaiju in one go. Even Kafka was impressed and finally started seeing Ichikawa as a true partner. Ichikawa developed a deep friendship with Kafka, given that Kafka saved him, and he was the first to keep Kafka's kaiju form a secret. All this time, Ichikawa has wanted to be someone capable of fighting by Kafka's side. He views Kafka as his hero and wants to be the person who will clear a path forward for him. But now that you know about Ichikawa and Japan's strongest anti-kaiju defense force members, there's still so much you're missing out on. Luckily, we've got plenty of videos about awesome series that you can't afford to miss, so go ahead and click the ones on your screen now.